Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Tales of Herding God Part 187 based on novel. So let's start. Second ancestor was delighted and hurriedly took the gold coins. You are much more filial than Little Sue. Little Sue isn't back yet, but when he returns, we are planning to give him a huge surprise. Second ancestor, don't forget to tell village chief I came by. Don't worry, I'll definitely tell him. Second ancestor promised through gritted teeth. Qin Mu hesitated before saying, Second ancestor, can you lend me first ancestors between life and death? I would like to do business. Second ancestor was puzzled. How would you use between life and death for business? Qin Mu smiled. There are many gods and devils in Fengju who can't go to the world of the living, so I would like to use between life and death as a bridge for the divine arts practitioners to make deals through it. Divine arts practitioners can take their gold coins or learn their divine arts, paths, and techniques in payment for helping those already passed on fulfill their wishes. I think this could be a big business. I plan to pave a road through great ruins, so I require some money to subsidize the expenses. Second ancestor was still puzzled and asked, where will the money come from? The divine arts practitioners will have to pay an entrance fee to use between life and death, and I will earn a huge amount from it. Second ancestor came to a realization and scolded him with a smile, you wily brat. Qin Mu smiled and said, between life and death can connect Fengju to the world of the living, so second ancestor can collect money here too, taking entrance fee from the gods and devils. Like that, you can also earn a huge amount. Even if I don't give offerings, you guys could live comfortably. In just a few years' time, all the ancestors would become the richest tycoons in Fengju. Second ancestor was dumbfounded and cried out, collecting money from both sides. Such a good deal. Won't people be jabbing our spine and scolding us? Between life and death is in our hands, and there's only this road that can connect the world of the dead and the world of the living. Even if they scold, they will still have no choice but to take our road and pay us. Second ancestor hurriedly rushed out, braving the true fire of pure yang, to get to first ancestor's sacred hall of 5 yang. He cared not for the blazing fire all over him as he dashed into the hall to fetch between life and death. The lips of the two huge beasts guarding the door twitched, and they said, Second master, old master only had this much of property left. You will bleed him dry sooner or later. Second ancestor smiled at them. My master still regards me as an outsider. When I'm rich, you guys will benefit as well. Qin Mu took between life and death, which was a small river that was about 3 yards long. There was a boat and a bridge within it. Second ancestor then instructed him, refine this between life and death first. When you perform the rites, I will be able to sense it over here. Remember, perform the rites at night. If you perform it in the day, you'd see the same sight as right now. The gods on the sun would burn us, and we wouldn't be able to do any business. Qin Mu acknowledged it and hung the long river on his body. Second ancestor, wait for my news. Second ancestor woke up at that moment and said immediately, business is a small matter. Don't spend too much effort on this and focus on your cultivation. Leave collecting money to others. Qin Mu nodded and said, I understand. After saying so, he took out some more Fengju gold coins. Second ancestor, please hand these over to the other ancestors for them to tide over these few days. Human Emperor Qin is considerate. Qin Mu bade farewell, and God Kai Xiu sent him to the boundary stone of the living realm of the dead. After going past here, there will be no more true fire of pure yang. Just take the boat back. Qin Mu gave his thanks. After walking out of the living realm of the dead, his corporeal body returned to normal. He waved to God Kai Xiu, who spread his wings to fly away. The dock was nearby, and Qin Mu called the lone boat in the sea of fog. The skeleton Daoist Ling Jing steered the boat over, carrying him, the dragon Chalene, and the chest to the opposite shore. When they came there, Qin Mu disembarked from the boat and took out 3 gold coins to pay the fare. Daoist Ling Jing was astonished and immediately said, "They are not humans, so there's no need to pay." Qin Mu smiled and said, "Daoist, just take them." Daoist Ling Jing hurriedly accepted his payment before probing him. Human Emperor Qin struck a windfall. Qin Mu laughed loudly. "I'm going to get rich. Daoist, farewell." Daoist Ling Jing saw him off and put away the gold coins properly while thinking to himself, "Another few hundred years, and I will be able to buy a house in Fengju too." God Kai Xiu returned to Hall of King Qin, and saw that the collapsed building had already returned back to normal. God Kai Xiu carefully walked over and saw King Yama standing at the back of the hall, looking at the flames behind the door. "Visitor from Carefree Village, very interesting," King Yama suddenly said. Even though he wasn't born in Carefree Village, his lineage is still that of founding emperor. His extraordinary. From just this short meetup, I actually have great expectations for him. If it was his father that had come, my expectations may be big, but I would still have become dispirited afterward. Yet now, even though I was disappointed when he arrived at first, my anticipation is only going to grow and grow. God Kai Xiu didn't understand. This cult master Qin, human emperor Qin, has a temper that jumps all over the place, so why is King Yama holding expectations for him? He stayed half a day in Fengju and beat up all the past human emperors, smashed the palace of cult master Zhu Yang, and beat up the past heavenly devil cult masters. He even went to extort money from the past cult masters and asked for between life and death, planning to connect the world of the dead and the world of the living to do some business. Isn't this fooling around? King Yama turned around and said with a smile, "Fengju is too cold and cheerless, so let him play crazy, and some unexpected changes might happen. I have never seen such an interesting person with such ideas. Maybe he can achieve what others couldn't. Besides, the secrets about him aren't as simple as he thinks. This makes me look forward to him even more." God Kai Xiu was astonished. King Yama will really allow him to connect Fengju to the world of the living for him to do his business. King Yama waved his hands and didn't speak anymore. Even though the sun had risen, darkness covered Youdu. There was no sky, no land, no sun, moon, or stars. Shingan floated in the darkness, but at that moment, a faint voice rang out, waking him up. "Shingan, wake up." Shingan opened his eyes to look around. There were still all kinds of limbs growing from his body. Not only that, there was also a monster that looked like an octopus stuck to his back. Its limbs were strong and strapped tightly to him while contracting non-stop. He had fainted from that monster binding him. "Who is talking?" he asked weakly. "A human from the world of the living, an interesting life form." "Shingan, after reaching such a state, do you still want to return to the world of the living?" The owner of the voice circled around him. Sometimes the words came from the left, and sometimes from the right. Sometimes it was above him, and sometimes it was below. It seemed like a fish swimming in the darkness. "You are a saint that appears once every 500 years, yet you have landed in such a state. This truly makes me sigh in regret. How could you face the people of the world looking like this?" The limbs on Shingan's body were held by the monster, and he couldn't move, so he could take a breather. Before, he'd been in unbelievable torture, and suffered more than ever before in his life. He had never been so miserable and helpless before. Yet now, he still wasn't at ease as he was in Youdu. Only after he jumped into the river did he find out where he went, that it was a place where the dead sank. He was in despair. Youdu was the place where Earth Count ruled, and he had never heard before anyone that could survive after entering Youdu. He had barged into Fengdu, and now he had barged into Youdu. Why was heaven treating him so horribly? What exactly are you? Why are you mocking me? Shingan let out a shaky breath. He wanted to struggle out of the monster's binding, but he couldn't muster any strength. Besides, even if he could break free, the other body parts would rebel and beat him up, cursing him. He had no strength to escape from the monster. Even if he broke free from the limbs on his body, his lifespan wouldn't be long, and if it came to an end, he would die in Youdu. My name is Lu Li, the voice said, no longer moving. Qian Ming is the left, and Han Lei the right. Lu Li is the front, and Zhu Huang the back. Shingan gasped for breath. Lu Li. Did you ask me if I wanted to return to the world of the living? I want to return to the world of the living. You don't know the meaning of this poem. The tone of that voice was slightly disappointed as it sighed. The top-notch practitioner of the world of the living is actually so ignorant, actually not knowing Qian Ming, Han Lei, Lu Li, and Zhu Huang. You guys have fallen that low. Oh well, I won't bully your ignorance. I can let you return to the world of the living and solve the danger of your corporeal body. I can even erase your death record, and let you have no more worries of dying from old age. Shingan's expression loosened and he asked, what do I have to do? It's pleasant to talk with smart people, Lu Li said. 10 years ago, there was a child who was born in Youdu and absorbed the chi of Youdu before being brought away. He was sent out, and I need you to send him back. My corporeal body is too strong, so I can't pass through the barrier between Youdu and the world of the living, so I need you to walk there and do my work. How should I find this child? Shingan asked. Very simple. He has a jade pendant, and there's a unique rune on it. There's also the word Qin engraved on it, so you will recognize it when you see it, Lu Li explained. He should be around 17 now, almost 18. I've already drawn his birth data, and the shape of the jade pendant. He was born on the 8th of the 12th lunar month, first year of the 60-year cycle, and the 12th solar month. A picture flew over, and the 8-tentacle monster holding Shingan suddenly left, vanishing into the darkness. At the same time, the limbs on Shingan's body started rotting, and numerous heads, arms, legs, and bodies fell off. Shingan's heart trembled violently, as he felt his body becoming his once again. He hurriedly grabbed the painting. Lu Li's voice rang beside his ear then. Find this child. You can kill or capture him, but you cannot let his soul disperse. I need you to send his soul in perfect condition to Youdu. If even a hair is gone, you will die incomparably miserably. When it said the last word, the limbs suddenly grew back on Shingan's body. Lu Li's chuckles floated around as Shingan's body returned to normal. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead. I'll pass you a mirror. After you find him, you can use this mirror to verify his identity. A mirror suddenly appeared from the darkness and landed in Shingan's hand. Lu Li then said with a laugh, this mirror can reflect his identity, but you can't aim the mirror at him while facing him, do you understand? Can't aim the mirror at him while facing him. Shingan stared blankly at the floating object, as he didn't know what the creature meant. That's right. Your back must face him while you use the mirror to observe him. Lu Li's tone suddenly became stern. Remember, when facing him, you can never shine this mirror on him. Your back must face him. I get it, you don't need to repeat it so many times. Just a small matter. This is definitely not a small matter. Lu Li sneered. If you shine it on him while facing him, you will cause a huge problem, a very huge problem. I can extend your life for 30 years. So you'll have 30 years to do this for me. You can go now. Hold it. Shingan smiled and said leisurely, we haven't met before, but since this mirror can reflect a person, it should be able to reflect you too, right? He flipped the mirror and pointed its face behind himself. You? He stared at the mirror and saw the reflection of a peerless beauty. Lu Li's voice had clearly belonged to a man, yet the mirror reflected a woman. The beauty flicked her finger, and Shingan started spinning as though he had fallen into a huge whirlpool. When he woke up, he realized he was lying on a long rock under an ancient pine tree, as though he had fallen asleep and spent the night in the open there. The surroundings had birdsong and fragrant flowers, as well as springs and waterfall. There were a few monkeys swinging to and fro among the forest before stopping to pluck some bananas. They peeled them and ate eagerly while looking at him with caution. Stunned, Shingan looked around. How was he still not at the broken cliff of great ruins? There was an ocean in front of him. What is this place? He couldn't help asking bewilderedly. This is South Sea. The monkey threw a banana peel that hit his head. South Sea. Shingan immediately got up, at a loss. He was now located at the southernmost part of Great Ruins, which was some 30–40,000 miles from where he had entered Fengdu. You are a strange beast in Great Ruins, but you can talk. It seems like you are a strange breed which awakened your intelligence. Shingan picked the banana peel and flicked it away. Taking into account that you pointed out the location for me, I won't kill you, but some suffering is inevitable. The monkey jumped up. When it landed, a banana peel appeared under its feet, causing it to slip and fall. The monkey was furious, but when it climbed up, wanting to take revenge on Shingan, he had already disappeared without a trace. How petty. The monkey was furious and jumped onto a tree, but to its surprise, what it grabbed was another banana peel, and so it came crashing down from the tree. The banana peel seemed to have gotten stuck to the monkey. As long as it jumped up, it would automatically fly to its hands or legs, causing it to slip and fall badly. The monkey was furious and picked up a stone to tear the banana peel to pieces. By then, Shingan had already left and was mumbling to himself. Even though Lu Li is remarkable, she can't enter the world of the living. How can I, Shingan, be manipulated by her? She gave me a lifespan of 30 years, and she wants to control me with that. Not so easy. Divine Physician Qin said that he has already established the space algebra model of the divine bridge, and spread it around. I shall go to eternal peace, and with my comprehension and aptitude, I can become a god in 1 or 2 years and break free from her control. Suddenly, Lu Li's voice rang out beside his ears. Rascal, I'll take away 15 years from your lifespan. Shingan's heart trembled violently, and he hurriedly looked around. However, he couldn't find any traces of Lu Li. This is the world of the living, and she can't come here. It must be a hallucination. Just as he thought that, he suddenly came to a realization, and quickly opened his life and death divine treasure. He saw that it was connected to Youdu, which was dark and hazy. A pair of eyes were glowing in the darkness there, staring at him. Shingan's blood went cold. He knew he could never break free. Even if he became a god, it would be hard for him to escape from that woman's control. Who exactly is this person that's born in Youdu? Shingan frowned. There were many 17 years old, so where was he going to find such a person? Fatty dragon, faster. The sky is almost dark. Qin Mu hurried. We need to find a ruin, or a village before the night comes. The darkness flooded over from the west as Qin Mu brought the dragon Qilin and the chest to a ruin full of strange beasts of great ruins. They all stayed together in harmony. The chest took the time to dug out a broken stone tablet from underground and planned to stuff it into its stomach, but it was too huge and didn't fit inside. Qin Mu went over to sweep the dust off the stone tablet and read, Big Dipper's dark and light true purity heaven Lady Mother of the Chariot. This is the celestial heavens of founding emperor era, the place where Big Dipper's Lady Mother of the Chariot resided. This Lady Mother of the Chariot should be a powerful goddess, but it's a pity that even this place has turned into ruin. He stood up and went to the entrance of Palace of Lady Mother of the Chariot, and looked at the darkness outside. The darkness seemed like it was blocked by a screen of light at the palace's entrance. There was a clear separation between light and dark. Qin Mu hesitated for a moment before stretching out his thumb, his nail slowly getting closer to the darkness. Cult Master, don't die. The dragon Qin pounced over, and bit his leg to drag him back. It resulted in him collecting a lot of dust, and Qin Mu rose to beat the dragon Qin up, when he jumped back to his feet. Roar! A commotion suddenly broke out in the ruin. Numerous strange beasts and territorial beasts were furious, and they roared all at once while closing in on Qin Mu. His forehead broke out in sweat, and he slowly stepped back. He looked at the thousands of strange beasts that were closing in on him and tried to explain, "Everyone, listen to me. I'm not breaking the rules of Great Ruins on purpose." It was this fatty dragon who made a move first. He retreated to the door and leaned against a stone pillar. Some of the huge beasts beat their chests, while some snarled and showed their teeth. Some were sharpening their claws and some were preparing their divine arts, ready to kill the fellow who had broken the rules of Great Ruins. Qin Mu gritted his teeth and suddenly turned. With a headlong dash, he pushed his head into the darkness. Most of the strange beasts were dumbfounded. The dragon Qin wailed loudly, and bit onto Qin Mu's pants to pull him back. The other strange beasts covered their faces, as they knew a skeleton without flesh would be pulled out. Either that, or the neck would have been severed cleanly and be all bloody. "Fatty dragon, go away." Qin Mu gave a kick, and the hairs of all strange beasts stood up on ends. Their blood ran cold. Moving. A territorial strange beast stuttered before its voice rose in a shout. "Moving corpse." At that moment, Qin Mu entered the darkness with a pop. Before the strange beasts could let out a sigh of relief though, a head suddenly popped back in from the darkness. Thump! A strange beast collapsed, having fainted from fright. Qin Mu shrunk his head back and looked around. If he had not broken the rules of Great Ruins and been forced out by the strange beasts, he would not have barged into the darkness. He had never thought before that the day would come when he could step into the darkness by himself. It was completely different from relying on the protection of the stone statues or the chest. He felt as if he blended into the darkness like a fish in water. It was like he was part of the darkness. In his eyes, it was no longer pure black, but similar to fog. This isn't truly darkness, but a special kind of substance. Qin Mu was astonished. He was always curious about the darkness in Great Ruins, but his cultivation had been too low to enter the darkness. But even with enough power to enter the darkness, he reckoned he wouldn't be able to discover the marvel of the darkness, because strong practitioners like Village Chief and Shingan were forcing it back, and not letting it get close to them. Forcing the darkness back made it difficult to discover the truth about it. Qin Mu was, however, blending in with the darkness, so it was much easier for him to see it. Village Chief had once guessed that the darkness of Great Ruins wasn't truly darkness. Instead, it was a world that overlapped with Great Ruins, and he named it the Dark Realm. It was later that Village Chief discovered that there wasn't only one Dark Realm in Great Ruins but several. He had also called Fengdu a Dark Realm. However, as Qin Mu's understanding of Fengdu increased, he discovered another secret. Fengdu could be called a Dark Realm, but it was only a corner of it, one which belonged to none other than Youdu. That place was one of the Dark Realms in Great Ruins. Youdu and Fengdu were moving and changing their locations continuously, so they didn't cover the entire Great Ruins. The one that did it should be another Dark Realm. When Qin Mu stepped into the darkness, he discovered another truth of Great Ruins. The darkness was some kind of strange substance. When I entered another world through the broken cliff and realized that the day and night of that world were the opposite of those in Great Ruins, I had a daring guess. Qin Mu's gaze flickered. He remembered what he had seen and guessed in the Golden Desert. That world was the Great Ruins of High Emperor era, where he had gone to avoid Shingan. There was also day and night there, and they were opposite to the day and night in Great Ruins. Because of that, Qin Mu guessed that the darkness flooded over from the Great Ruins of High Emperor era. When the sun set, the darkness flowed out through the cracks and went to the Great Ruins of Founding Emperor from the Great Ruins of High Emperor. When High Emperor Great Ruins started a new day, Founding Emperor Great Ruins went to night. When the sun rose, the darkness returned to High Emperor Great Ruins. The two Great Ruins formed an hourglass, and the darkness was the sand inside, flowing to and fro. This was Qin Mu's guess. However, he had been running from Shingan back then, and there was only Pangong so nearby, so he hadn't voiced his guess to anyone. When in the darkness now, he discovered that it was some strange substance, and it affirmed his guess. If the cracks on the broken cliff stretching from north to south were blocked, could we lock the darkness in High Emperor Great Ruins? From then on, would there be no more invasions of darkness at night? Qin Mu blinked, finding this reasoning realistic. However, he didn't know if it would succeed or not. Besides, the broken cliff was very large, and had numerous cracks, so it would be connected to more than one world. How to block the cracks was also another problem. Blocking isn't the best method to solve the problem. The best way to do it is to familiarize myself with the characteristics of the darkness that can swallow people. Qin Mu studied the dark substance, which was like fog in detail. Black specks had shape, but not physical substance as they could pass through the skin. Strange substance. Qin Mu was astonished. He mobilized a strand of vital qi and used it to fix a portion of the black substance in place. His palm passed through it without feeling any obstruction. He also didn't feel like he had touched anything. What substance is this exactly? What qualities does it have? Qin Mu was thinking about it when the Dragon Chilin's nervous voice suddenly came from the ruin. Cult Master, are you still alive? The sound seemed to have come from very far away, as though it had passed through a thick wall. Don't worry, I'm still alive. I'll feed you tomorrow morning, Qin Mu called back. Okay. The Dragon Chilin made a sound of acknowledgement, then began to argue. I wasn't worried about food, but Cult Master's safety. But since Cult Master is fine, I can sleep now. Cult Master, come back once you're done playing. We have a long day tomorrow. Qin Mu studied his surroundings for a while, but couldn't understand what the dark substance was. At the moment he was about to head back, he saw a monster. Whispers came from his surroundings. There were numerous monsters hidden in the darkness, shadows of rocks, and the forest watching him quietly. Scuttling sounds could be heard from time to time as black shadows moved around like phantoms, jumping from one patch of darkness to another at an extremely fast speed. Qin Mu found it hard to see their movements even when he activated his divine eyes. Suddenly, he faintly saw real shadows walking through the darkness. These figures seemed to be located between the void and reality, and they weren't monsters but humans. They were shadows of humans. Why are there people in the darkness? Qin Mu's heart trembled slightly, and he hurriedly rushed forward. Other than him, the only people that could walk in the darkness were existences that had the abilities of gods, for example, village chief, Shingan. Or it could also be some things that could give off divine light, for example, Shingan's chest, which was made from Taotie's divine bones and skin. When they entered the darkness, they would give off divine light and force the darkness back. But the shadows in the darkness didn't force the darkness back. They were like Qin Mu, blending with it. What was even weirder about them was that they seemed to be formed from the darkness. Qin Mu went after a shadow, which seemed to be just as curious about him. It stopped and seemed to be waiting for him to come. Qin Mu rushed over and examined the black shadow in front of him curiously. It had two long braids hanging down its shoulders as it examined him as well. Before him was a girl. Even though he could only see her silhouette, he could guess that she wasn't too old. She stretched out her palm in what seemed like an attempt to touch him, and Qin Mu stretched out his hand as well. However, their palms passed through each other like there was nothing there. The girl in the shadow seemed astonished and said something. However, her words were whispers beside Qin Mu's ears that he couldn't make out. So strange. Qin Mu was puzzled and scratched his head. Can you hear what am I saying? The girl seemed to be unable to hear what he was saying. Their voices were warped by a strange power. Suddenly, the girl squatted down, her braids bouncing from the motion. She stretched out her hand and wrote something on the ground. Qin Mu lowered his head to look, but he could only see black light flowing below. There was nothing written on the ground. He also wrote a sentence, but the shadow girl shook her head, expressing that she couldn't see what he was writing either. An idea flashed in Qin Mu's head. Pulling his sword out, he executed sword treading mountains and rivers, but the girl still shook her head, expressing that she didn't understand what he was doing. Qin Mu was out of ideas. Suddenly, the black shadow girl ran forward and stopped after a few steps to beckon him over. Qin Mu followed after her, and the two of them ran for a while. After some time, the black shadow girl stopped, but Qin Mu couldn't stop himself and passed straight through her. His motion pushed him to an overhanging cliff that was 30,000 yards high. The girl tried to grab his hand, but she couldn't get hold of him. Luckily, Qin Mu managed to stabilize himself and didn't drop down the cliff. The girl pointed forward, and Qin Mu's mind trembled violently at the sight. Down the cliff stood a magnificent city that possessed a foreign mood to it. Qin Mu had never seen such a vast and majestic construction in Great Ruins before. Strange, this city doesn't exist in Great Ruins. So could it really be the Dark Realm overlapping with Great Ruins? Qin Mu frowned slightly. If the dark substance could flow between founding Emperor Great Ruins and High Emperor Great Ruins, wouldn't this dark realm also exist in the ruins of High Emperor Great Ruins? Could he really block a world by blocking the cracks in the broken cliff? The darkness of Great Ruins is much more complicated than I imagined. I'm afraid it can't be blocked. Just as he thought that shadow girl leaped down from the mountain cliff. She sprinted diagonally down the air, as though she was walking on flat ground as she descended into the city below. Qin Mu also leaped as though he was flying and followed in her footsteps. After a moment, the two of them came to the city, and Qin Mu looked around. The place around him was flourishing, and there were many people bustling to and fro. However, in his eyes, they were all lumps of shadow. If they were changed into true humans, then he would be visiting an incomparably flourishing city. He also saw gods and devils in the darkness that were standing on tall buildings while looking around in alert. Qin Mu was stunned. He felt that there was something wrong. He had seen a similar sight before. In 100 Prosperity's city from 40,000 years back in time, the gods and devils had looked around in alert just like this. However, the gods and devils back then had been guarding against the darkness outside the city. In that case, what was this city in the darkness guarding against? The shadow girl brought Qin Mu around the city, and all the black shadows in the streets turned their heads to look at them. In their eyes, Qin Mu's form should have been very strange, for they couldn't help casting sidelong glances at him. The two of them passed through many alleys, before coming to a mansion built with an extraordinary style. There, an incomparably towering figure slowly rose and opened up its four arms to protect the building. Qin Mu's arrival seemed to have been what roused the god protecting this mansion. The shadow girl leaped up onto the palm of that god. She jumped around as though she was flying until she came to the shoulder of the god and said something to him. The god tilted his head and examined Qin Mu. He opened his mouth to speak, but his words were just whispers in Qin Mu's ears. He couldn't understand any of them. After a moment, the god lowered his palm and signaled for Qin Mu to stand on it. Qin Mu hesitated for a while, but when he came over, he couldn't step onto anything. He almost fell when trying to, and he hurriedly executed his divine art to float over the palm. The dark god was astonished, and he raised another hand to poke Qin Mu with a finger. It passed right through as if there was nothing there. The dark god scratched his head, not knowing what was happening. This is too strange. Qin Mu's heart trembled violently. Even an almighty god can't touch me. Suddenly, the city burst into a commotion, and the dark god placed down the shadow girl. He immediately rose into the sky and rushed toward the city gate. Qin Mu hurriedly followed the shadow girl toward a high place. The space outside the city trembled as black holes suddenly appeared. Grotesque gods and devils crawled out from them, bringing countless soldiers to rush at the magnificent city. A large-scale battle erupted. Not long later, the city was invaded, and countless devils flooded through the streets, where everyone began fighting. Qin Mu followed the shadow girl to hide while the city was in chaos. Divine arts and spirit weapons bursting forth with power flashed everywhere, and houses and palaces crumbled all around. It was an extremely long night, until the crow of a rooster rang through the air. Qin Mu's heart trembled slightly at that moment. The darkness surged along with the city. The devil gods retreated back frantically with the monsters, retreating into space holes that vanished without a trace. Qin Mu's figure swayed from the moving darkness. He was about to grab the shadow girl beside him when she vanished along with the city. A ray of sunlight shone down and lighted up the surroundings. Qin Mu looked around and saw towering mountains and precipitous ridges, without any sign of a city having existed in their place. Cult Master! Cult Master! The dragon Chilean's cries came from a distance. Qin Mu looked toward the source of the sound and saw the ruin where they had been resting the day before. The dragon Chilean held his basin as he rushed over to place it down. While wagging his tail, he said with a laugh, "Cult Master, it's time to eat. You know it's quite late already." Qin Mu looked around, feeling like the night's events had been just a dream. Great ruins is too strange. Did I really enter another world last night? This video will end here.